Good morning. The Morrow Family of Newgate Street, 1945. Here we go. Number 7. Stone the Crows. Things are about to get lively around here. This story documents the Morrow family as they navigate the transition from World War II to the early post-war years in London. Central to the story is, of course, Maud Morrow, who manages a family tensions, oversees a retail shop, and operates a discreet herbal apothecary amid continued rationing and societal shifts. What a strange dog just walked by outside. Very strange dog, half dinosaur. Where was he? Yes. The novel explores profound personal struggles, including Maggie's adjustment with a prosthetic leg and the shocking return of William, who survived a brutal Japanese prisoner of war camp. Key historical milestones, such as the discovery of Auschwitz, the 1945 general election, and VE Day celebrations, provide a backdrop for the characters' private grief and resilience. Through themes of reconciliation and recovery, the novel illustrates how individual lives were reshaped after the war's end. The final sections provide a historical epilogue detailing the long-term fates of the family and their associates and friends into the late 20th century. I tell you, the AI voices do such a good job here. It's been a long time since I read the books, and must be 15 years, I suppose. And my eyes watered a little bit. They did. Here we go.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening the file on something really special. We are looking at a pivotal moment in history through the lens of a very specific, very resilient group of people. We are tackling the Morrow family of Newgate Street, 1945.
That's right. And for those of you who've been following along with this saga, this is it. This is the 7th chapter in the 8-part series.
This is a penultimate chapter.
Exactly. We are nearing the end of this incredible journey. And this particular deep dive, well, it covers the year that changed everything for everyone.
1945. I mean, just the date alone carries so much weight. You think of victory, you think of, parties in the street, sailors kissing nurses in Times Square.
The newsreels.
Exactly, the big famous photos. But looking at the source material for the Morrows, this isn't just newsreel footage of people cheering. This is gritty. It starts in January, and let me tell you, it is cold.
It is incredibly cold. And that physical coldness, it really mirrors the psychological state of London at this point.
It has to.
We are talking about a city and a family that is completely and utterly exhausted. They have been at war for 6 years. And right at the start of our sources, we see Richard and Maud Biggs, who are really the anchors of this family, waking up in a freezing bedroom.
I mean, the description is just, you can feel it.
You can. The coal is rationed, the windows are rattling, and there is just this bone-deep weariness that permeates every single page.
Yeah, let's set that scene a bit more. It's January. There's this thing they keep mentioning called the brownout, not the blackout.
Right.
Can we unpack that? Because Richard and Maud actually have a little squabble about it right at the beginning.
It's a fascinating detail, and it tells you so much about where their heads are at, The brownout was a relaxation of the really strict blackout rules.
Yep.
It was introduced by the government because the threat of conventional bombers, the big Luftwaffe raids, had basically dropped to nothing, so you were allowed to show a dim light, a little glimmer.
But Maud isn't having it.
No. Maud. She doesn't trust it. She wants those blackout curtains up tight. Her mindset is still pure survival. She's thinking, why give a German pilot a target? Why take the risk?
Even if it's a tiny one.
Even if it's a 1 in a million chance. Whereas Richard, who is, and we see this throughout the book, obsessed with the wireless and the news.
Glued to it.
Completely. He knows the Luftwaffe is pretty much done. He's heard the reports. So it shows that tension between the habit of fear, ingrained over years, and the emerging reality that the end is near.
And speaking of fear, even though the big bombers are gone, the V weapons are not.
Oh, no.
The doodlebugs, they are still falling. There's a scene in the kitchen where the whole family just freezes because they hear that dull throbbing noise.
It's the sound of the V1 flying bomb, the buzz bomb. And what's really telling is the reaction, or more accurately, the lack of panic.
Nobody dives under the table.
No one screams. They just stop talking. Mid-sentence, they look at the ceiling, they're listening, they wait for the engine to cut out, which, means it's diving.
And when it passes,
Maud just pours the tea as if nothing happened. It's normalized terror. That is the atmosphere we are stepping into. They aren't running for the shelters anymore. They are just pausing their lives for 10 seconds at a time to see if they die.
wow. So the mission for this deep dive is really to explore this transition from war to peace. But it's not a clean break, is it? It's not like a switch flips on VE Day.
Not at all. It's incredibly messy. And the theme that just jumps out from these documents again and again is return and reconstruction.
We're due in a reconstruction.
Yeah. People are physically coming back from POW camps, from service abroad, but they aren't the same people who left. And at the same time, the ones who stayed have to try and reconstruct their own lives amidst all this trauma, new government acts, and frankly, shifting social roles.
It's like the foundations of their lives have been shaken, and now they have to see if the house will still stand.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the first ghost to return, quite literally, represents this perfectly. We have to talk about Anthony Burns.
Oh, this story. Okay, listeners, you have to picture this. It's bleak. Maggie, who is Maud's daughter, is walking through the snow at Snow Hill.
And remember, Maggie lost part of her leg to an American tank accident in a previous year.
Right, so she's already struggling with her own mobility, her own trauma from the war, even though she wasn't a soldier. And she's with her friend Gail, and they see a beggar.
Just a shape in the snow, really.
And it turns out to be Anthony.
And we need some context here for anyone who might not remember. Anthony is the father of Maggie's child, Juliet.
And not just that.
No. He's the man who abandoned her years ago. He was a doctor, or training to be one. He claimed the baby wasn't his, and just vanished. Joined the army. He was the villain of her pre-war life. Handsome, arrogant, untouchable.
He was the one that got away and broke her heart.
And her trust. Completely.
And now, the description in the text is just, it's harrowing. He's supposed to be 22 years old, but the text says he looks 50.
The source text gives us this brutal, almost clinical inventory of his injuries. He has lost a leg.
Just like Maggie.
Yes, the irony is thick. He has also lost an arm. And an eye. His face is described as mottled and gray from skin grafts.
The text uses the word Pierrot, the sad clown.
It does, because he's grown his hair long and lank on one side to hide the fact that his ears were burned off or severely damaged. He is a broken man. He's the physical wreckage of war standing on a street corner, begging.
The complete opposite of the man she knew.
A total inversion.
And Maggie's reaction, I found this so real. She doesn't have this Hollywood moment of weeping and forgiveness. She doesn't rush to hug him.
No, she's cold. She's hard.
She tells her friend Gail he's a bastard. That's her first instinct. She's bitter.
And can you blame her? I mean, she's dealing with her own trauma. She's an amputee herself. She's feeling ugly, as the text says. She has this deep-seated fear that she'll be a spinster forever.
So seeing him doesn't just bring back the abandonment.
It holds a mirror up to the physical cost of the war for both of them. She sees him, this wreck of a man, and she thinks, you hurt me, and now look at you. There's almost a grim satisfaction there. Or maybe it's just a defensive wall going up.
Absolutely. But this is where the dynamic shifts completely.
Yeah.
Because Maud, the mother, intervenes.
Maud is just incredible here. She's the moral compass of the whole story.
So she finds out from Gail that Maggie saw him and just left him there in the snow.
And she is not having it. Maud puts on her coat, goes out into the snow, and finds him shivering in a doorway. And she takes him to St. Sepulchre Church.
Why do you think she does that? I mean, she knows he hurt her daughter so deeply.
I think Maud operates on a different frequency. She sees the suffering before she sees the sin, perhaps. Or maybe, and I think this is key, she sees a soldier. Remember, her own son, William, is missing in action. For all she knows, he's dead or in a camp somewhere. She looks at Anthony, broken, starving, a British soldier, and she can't just leave him. It's a fundamental part of her character.
So she gives him money.
She gives him money. She listens to his story about El Alamein, about the mine that blew him apart. But she also, and this is the crucial part, she orchestrates a resolution.
She's a pragmatist.
Utterly. She realizes that as long as he is this ghost haunting the streets of London, Maggie can't move on. It's a pragmatic compassion. She needs to deal with the problem.
Which leads to this incredibly tense tea at the Reverend's flat.
Oh, you can cut the tension with a knife. Anthony meets Juliet, his daughter, for the first and only time.
And Juliet is terrified of him.
Of course she is. He's a frightening figure. He looks like a monster to a little girl, and that is the absolute tragedy of it. He wants to see her just once. He admits he can't be a father. He says, and this is a direct quote, "I'm not a man anymore."
Which implies his injuries are even more extensive than what we can see.
It does. It implies a kind of finality. He knows he can't have a family, a future. He is a symbol of the ultimate cost of war. He makes a promise to stay away, to not interfere.
Damn Maggie. How does she leave it?
She doesn't forgive him, not in a warm, fuzzy way, but she lets him go. Seeing him like that, it cauterizes the wound. It's not a gentle healing, it's a burning out of the infection.
She realizes she's the survivor in this situation, not the victim.
Exactly. It's closure, but it's painful, ugly closure. And it really sets the tone for the rest of the year. This isn't about living happily ever after, it's about surviving the peace.
And survival takes so many different forms. While Maggie is dealing with the return of this old lover, Isabella, another key member of this makeshift family, is dealing with the departure of a mother. A very different kind of mother.
A completely different story. And with Isabella, we are taken from the relative warmth and, respectability of the Newgate street shop to a slum in Westminster, Old Pie Street.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that while the Morrows are comfortable shopkeepers, deep grinding poverty is just around the corner.
Always. The war didn't erase the class system.
So Isabella goes to visit her mother, Mrs. Argabride, who is dying of what she calls the flammation.
Liver cancer. It's pretty clear it's brought on by years of hard living and drinking. And the dynamic between them is it's toxic.
There's no love lost there.
None. Mrs. Argabride is unrepentant. She's cruel to the very end. She basically sold Isabella out in the past to men like the corrupt magistrate, Wilfred Pepper. There is no deathbed reconciliation here. No tearful goodbyes.
In fact, Isabella's reaction to her mother's impending death is chilling.
It is. She tells the nurse, just tip her in the Thames.
I gasped when I read that. Tip her in the Thames. It just shows how much damage was done. It's a visceral rejection of that maternal bond.
It's the sound of a daughter cutting the cord herself with a rusty knife. But the real complication here isn't the mother dying. It's what she leaves behind.
Harry.
He is a fascinating, tragic figure in this year's narrative. He's Isabella's younger brother, 9 years old.
And he's described as dirty, lice-ridden.
And completely emotionless. When Isabella tells him his mother is going to die, he doesn't cry, he doesn't react, he just asks, would I be here a long time?
He's just thinking about his own survival.
That's all he knows. He's a feral child. That term feral comes up a few times, and it's absolutely the right word for him.
So they bring him back to Newgate Street. And you've got this household of women, Maud, Maggie, Agnieszka, Gail, trying to maintain standards, polishing the brass, keeping the shop respectable.
And then you drop this wild boy into the mix.
He's completely disruptive. He doesn't know how to behave at a table. He steals things. He doesn't understand the rules.
He represents a huge social problem of 1945, the war-damaged children, the ones who fell through the cracks. He's been raised on bomb sites, largely unsupervised while his mother was drinking or ill.
He's so different from the other children in the house, Juliet and Cleopatra, who are loved and cared for.
Absolutely. Harry is the grit in the oyster. But he doesn't turn into a pearl, he just remains an irritant. It shows that you can take the boy out of the war, but taking the war out of the boy is a much, much harder task.
But while Isabella is severing ties with this awful mother, Agnieszka, the Polish refugee who lives with them, gets a totally different story arc.
A complete counter-narrative.
She finds her mother.
Yes. And it's such a welcome moment of hope in this early part of the book. The Reverend, who's a key figure, helps Agnieszka track down Mrs. Wieniawski.
And the history there is that she was stolen from her mother at age 8 in Poland.
Stolen by the Germans. She hasn't seen her in nearly 20 years. And the reunion scene in Clapton is it's incredibly powerful.
It's another poverty-stricken flat, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a fairy tale reunion in that sense.
No, the setting is bleak. It's a bomb-damaged building, screaming kids in the hallway, the smell of cabbage. But the moment the door opens, it's immediate.
There's no hesitation.
None. It's immediate love. Mrs. Wieniawski recognizes her instantly. There's crying. There's Polish being spoken. It's a pure, uncomplicated reunion.
And the acceptance. This is the big thing. Agnieszka has a daughter, Cleopatra. Now, listeners need to remember this is a really difficult part of the backstory. Cleopatra is the result of a rape by Maud's son, William. It's a complicated, dark lineage.
It's the darkest secret in the family.
But Mrs. Winooski doesn't care. She doesn't even flinch. She just embraces them both.
It's such a beautiful moment amidst all the grime and the tragedy. She doesn't ask about the father. She doesn't judge. She just sees her granddaughter and this new life. And this reunion, it sparks a huge change in Agnieszka.
She decides she wants more.
Exactly. She's been working in the shop, weighing nails, being part of the Morrow Biggs unit. But now she has her own family anchor. She decides she wants to be a nurse.
Which is such a classic 1945 theme. It's about healing.
It is. Women who had been holding things together during the war, now looking for professional validation in the peace. She wants to heal others, probably as a way of healing herself. It's a move toward independence.
She's found her roots.
So now she can grow branches. It's a wonderful contrast to Isabella's story. One mother's death frees Isabella to start over, and another mother's return allows Agnieszka to do the same.
Which brings us to the spring and summer, and the big one, May 1945, VE Day.
The moment everyone was waiting for. Hitler is dead, Berlin has fallen, the war in Europe is over.
But what strikes me in the source text is Richard's reaction versus the women's reaction. There's a real difference there.
There is. Richard is, as we've said, glued to that radio.
He is obsessed. He wants to discuss the military strategy, the downfall of the Reich, the political implications of the link-up with the Russians. He's all about the macro view.
The grand narrative of history and the women. They are completely practical. Maud's attitude is very much, thank God, now can we get some proper meat in the shop?
It's that disconnect between the geopolitical victory and the domestic reality.
For them, victory means the queues might get shorter. It means they might not have to worry about their windows being blown in. It's tangible. Richard's victory is abstract.
But they do celebrate. It's not all grim and practical.
Oh, they absolutely do. There are street parties. The source describes them going to the Viaduct Tavern and Richard buying drinks for everyone. Agnieszka puts her gramophone in the window of the shop, and people start dancing in Newgate Street.
I love that image.
It's a great image. But the text adds a very important caveat. It notes a strange mix of euphoria and exhaustion.
It's not just pure, unadulterated joy.
No, it's relief. It's the joy of not having to be scared anymore. Richard stands on the steps of St. Paul's and says, it's over, thank you, God. But then, in the next breath, they immediately have to worry about the Japanese front. It's not fully over. The boys in Burma are still fighting. William is still missing.
The shadow is still there.
The shadow is still there.
And that leads us directly to August, the end of that shadow.
Yeah.
And the beginning of a new one. The atomic age begins.
The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is handled with a very specific, very authentic 1945 perspective in the text, which I think is important.
How so?
Well, Richard reads the newspaper reports, and he is just stunned. He calls it science fiction. The idea of one bomb destroying an entire city is utterly incomprehensible to a man who lived through the Blitz, where you needed hundreds of planes and thousands of bombs to do that kind of damage.
He can't get his head around the scale of it.
Not at all. It's a leap in destructive power that his mind can't process. He's talking about the physics, the science of it.
And Maud, what's her take on this new, terrifying weapon?
Maud is pragmatic to the point of what we might now see as ruthlessness. Her reaction is essentially, if it ends the war, good.
Just get it done.
Get it done. She wants her son William back, and we'll get to him in a moment, and she wants the killing to stop. She doesn't have the luxury of sitting in an armchair debating the morality of it from 80 years in the future. She just wants the boys home, now.
It's a really honest depiction of how people on the ground probably felt. There wasn't a big philosophical debate in the kitchen. It was just, will this end it?
Exactly. And amidst all this global upheaval, these massive world-changing events, there are equally massive social changes happening right in their living room. We have to talk about the Family Allowances Act.
Yes. This is a fascinating detail. Richard reads about this in the paper. The government starts paying cash directly to families for each child after the first one.
But specifically, and this is the revolutionary part, it's paid to the mothers.
Directly to them, not to the husband.
Not to the husband as the head of the household. This is a quiet revolution. Richard notes it in his diary. It's the first time a major state payment goes directly to the wife. It's the state acknowledging women's economic role in raising the next generation.
And for someone like Maggie, a single mother.
It's life-changing. It's a small amount of money, but it's her money. It's independence. It's the welfare state beginning to take shape right there on their kitchen table.
But not everything is state-sanctioned, is it? Maud is still running her little side hustle. Her black market pharmacy.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Morrow's mixture.
What's in this stuff?
It's a mix of herbs, but the key ingredient seems to be poppy seeds. So essentially a mild opiate morphine.
And Richard is terrified.
He is beside himself. He's a law-abiding man. Maud has been in trouble with the law before, with Wilfred Pepper. He keeps telling her to starve, that she's going to get arrested again.
But the community relies on her, don't they?
Completely.
Yeah.
People come to her for their bad backs, their coughs, their anxieties. Even the local police constable, the text implies, looks the other way because his wife probably uses it for her arthritis.
It highlights this gap in the system.
A huge gap. The NHS hasn't started yet. Doctors are overworked. People relied on community figures like Maud, the local wise woman, to patch them up. And she even starts putting proper labels on the bottles. Mrs. Morrow's mixture.
She's branding it.
It's entrepreneurship born of necessity. She's not just helping, she's running a business, a very illegal business, but a vital one.
Okay, we have to pivot now to the heavy hitter of this entire year. We've talked about ghosts returning, but the real ghost, the one they've been waiting for all this time, is William.
Maud's son, the missing piece of the family puzzle.
For the whole war, there's been nothing but silence. No letters, no telegrams from the War Office saying he's a prisoner. Just nothing.
And Maud has turned his picture to face the wall. It's her way of coping. She's trying to protect herself from the hope and the grief, but you know she's thinking about him every single day. She thinks he's dead.
She has to assume the worst.
It's the only way to survive. And then, in December, just before Christmas, there's a knock at the vicarage door.
And it's him. But this is not the hero's return you see in the movies, is it?
Far from it. This is one of the darkest, most difficult parts of the entire saga. William appears at the Reverend's house first because he is too ashamed, too broken to face his mother.
What does he look like?
He's described as a walking skeleton, a wraith.
And we find out he was a prisoner of the Japanese in Burma.
Yes. And the details are just horrific. The source material doesn't spare us. Typhoid, malaria, beriberi, gangrene. He lost a foot to infection. He was starved systematically. He only survived because American troops found him in a camp in Singapore after the surrender.
So he is physically devastated.
Completely. But the psychological damage, that's the real story. That's what tears the family apart when he comes home.
When Richard brings Maud to the vicarage to see him, that scene is just.
It's a harrowing scene. The text says she falls to her knees. She doesn't even recognize him at first. And he smells of something she couldn't identify, which is the smell of long-term suffering, of disease and decay. It's a silent embrace, full of pain.
But once he's back in the house on Newgate Street, the relief turns to fiction very, very quickly.
Almost immediately. He can't integrate. He can't handle the noise, the life, the peace. He is a raw, exposed nerve.
And he goes after everyone. He calls Rupert Gale's new boyfriend, who we'll meet in a second, a traitor.
He absolutely hates Rupert. And why? Because Rupert is an airman, a flyboy. In William's traumatized mind, the airmen had a clean war. They slept in beds in Norfolk between missions while he was rotting in the jungle. It's this toxic inter-service rivalry that's been magnified 1,000 times by his trauma.
He's looking for targets for his rage.
Anywhere he can find them. But the worst confrontation, by far, is with Agnieszka.
We have to address this. This is the moment the book has been building towards. William raped Agnieszka years ago. That's how Cleopatra was born. Now he's back, in the same house as her and his unacknowledged daughter.
And Richard, to his credit, forces the issue. He can't let it lie. He tells William, Agnieszka's still here and she has a daughter, your daughter.
And William's reaction is just vile.
It is. He shows no remorse, no guilt. He calls her a Polish whore. He refuses to even look at Cleopatra, let alone acknowledge she's his. He takes absolutely no responsibility. He frames himself purely as the victim. His suffering is all that matters.
So all that time in the camp, it didn't make him reflect, or?
It seems to have burned away any empathy he might have had. It made him hard and bitter and entirely self-focused.
And Agnieszka, how does she react to this?
She handles it with incredible dignity. She has her mother now. She has a future as a nurse. She doesn't need his validation anymore. She simply looks at him, this broken, hateful man, and walks away. But it creates this awful, poisonous atmosphere in the house.
You can feel it in the writing.
You can. Even little Juliet is terrified of Uncle Will. He's not a returning hero to her. He's this gaunt, angry monster in the corner.
It really, really challenges that whole narrative of the happy homecoming. Sometimes the person who comes back destroys the peace you fought so hard to maintain.
Precisely. And while William is festering in this pocket of war he's brought back with him to Newgate Street, Others are actively looking for an escape from it all. This brings us to the Forest Reach storyline.
The countryside contrast. The family now owns this farm, and it's being managed by Tiffany.
Tiffany is a star, a real land girl success story. She's running this place, dealing with pig births, crop rotations, making it thrive. And the farm becomes the larder for the London family.
Right. They're getting these baskets of eggs and meat when everyone else is still on strict rationing.
It's their lifeline. It's what allows them these little moments of abundance and luxury.
Arabella and Thomas decide they want in on that.
Yes. Thomas returns from the war safely, but he's traumatized in a quieter way than William. He's suffering from what we'd now call PTSD. He can't handle the noise and the smoke and the memories of London.
He wants peace.
He wants peace and quiet. So he and Arabella decide to move to the farm permanently. It represents a major shift we saw a lot of post-war. The desire for a quiet pastoral life, a rejection of the city that had been bombed to pieces.
A new start.
A new start. Meanwhile, back in London, romance is blooming for Gail. She meets Rupert Harding at a service at St. Paul's. It's a lovely, very gentle meeting. He's an airman with a limp from a crash. She's a shop assistant. They bond over a glass of sherry in a pub. It's sweet and hopeful.
But this new romance triggers a major fallout.
A huge one. With Isabella.
Isabella gets so jealous.
It's an ugly, corrosive jealousy. Isabella is lonely. She's burdened with her feral brother Harry. She feels unlovable and unattractive. Seeing Gail find this quiet happiness it breaks her.
So what happens?
They have a huge row in the shop. Isabella accuses Gail of being smug, of looking down on her. And Isabella quits. Just like that. She packs her bags, takes Harry, and moves out into a small flat in Fleet Street. It's the breaking up of the war family. The band is splitting up. The unit that survived the Blitz is fracturing under the pressures of peace.
And speaking of social friction, there's a small but telling scandal that Richard reads about in the papers. Mr. James Jones.
The ARP warden, a local hero, a pillar of the civil defense community.
And the paper reports he's been imprisoned for gross indecency.
Which is, of course, the 1945 code for
homosexuality.
Yes. And the family's reaction is very telling. Edjuska uses the derogatory slang of the time. She calls him a shirt-lifter, which reflects the casual prejudice of the period.
But Maud's reaction is interesting.
It is. She's shocked, but largely because he was a married man. The deception is what seems to bother her more than the act itself. It's just a small detail, but it's a reminder that while they were all fighting this grand war against fascism abroad, at home, men were being imprisoned and ruined for who they loved.
There were other wars being fought on the home front.
Many others. So we have all this turmoil, William's hatred, Isabella's departure, the scandal. It's a messy, difficult end to the year. But then we get to Christmas. Christmas, 1945.
And this feels like the crescendo of the whole book.
It really is. The family, minus William, who refuses to go, and Gail, who is with Rupert's family, decides to gather at Forest Reach. They leave the gray, bomb-scarred city and go to the snowy countryside.
And the food, reading the list made me hungry. Roast chicken, real custard with real eggs.
Trifle. Things they haven't tasted in years. It's abundance. It symbolizes safety, warmth, security. For the first time in 6 years, they are truly safe. There are no sirens. There is no blackout. The lights are on.
And there's that beautiful moment with Maud. She's standing outside looking out at the stars.
She has an internal monologue. It's a moment of profound gratitude. She thanks the dead. She thanks Jack, her first husband, Freddie, the boy they lost in the Blitz, even old Mrs. Foster. She's taking stock.
She survived.
She survived. And she and Richard share this quiet, tender moment in the kitchen. It reaffirms their partnership. They made it. They held the center when everything else was flying apart.
It feels like the end of an era, the end of the story. But this deep dive isn't over, because the source material gives us the afterword.
Ah, yes. The afterword.
We know what happens next. And listeners, this is where it gets really interesting, because we get to see the trajectory of these lives we've been following so closely.
This is the long-term analysis, and this is where you see how the events of 1945 didn't just end in 1945. They determined the rest of their lives.
So let's break it down. Let's start with the anchors, Maud and Richard.
They get their quiet victory. They run the shop until 1968. They retire, and then they die within a week of each other in 1971. It's a solid, enduring love story. They did their job. They saw it through to the end together.
What about Maggie?
Maggie's story is more bittersweet. She takes over the shop after they retire. She becomes a successful businesswoman, but she never marries. That fear she had when she saw Anthony, that she would be a spinster, it came true.
But she has Juliet.
She has Juliet, who she raises to be a strong, independent woman, and Juliet becomes a vet. So, in a way, Maggie succeeds in her most important mission, but perhaps not romantically.
And William, the broken son.
This is the great tragedy of the piece. He never recovers. The war broke something inside him that couldn't be fixed. He becomes a vocal, angry critic of Christianity, likely a reaction to the meaningless suffering he witnessed.
Does he ever find peace?
No. He dies young, of cancer, in 1953. He never, ever acknowledges Cleopatra as his daughter. The war effectively killed him. It just took 8 more years to finish the job.
That is just heartbreaking. What about Agnieszka and Cleopatra?
Theirs is a story of quiet, post-war upward mobility. They move out of the shop and into a new high-rise council flat in the 1960s, which was seen as the height of modernity back then.
The future.
The future. Agnieszka works as a nurse until she retires in 1983. She builds a good, solid life out of the ashes of her trauma. And Cleopatra finds her mother dead in her chair in 1993. A peaceful end.
A life well lived against all the odds.
Absolutely.
Isabella and Harry, the Farrell siblings.
2 very, very different paths. Isabella is the surprise success story. She breaks the cycle of her mother. She marries an electrician. They buy a house in Pimlico, which would be worth a fortune today. And she has 3 kids. She builds the stable family life she never had.
She makes it.
She really does. But
Harry's the tragedy.
he's the lost boy. The afterword suggests he was undiagnosed dyslexic, which explains all his trouble at school. He drifts from one low-paid job to another. He never really finds his place. Eventually, he emigrates to Canada in 1971 and just cuts contact, vanishes.
And war damage was just too deep for him.
It was. He was a casualty, just as surely as if he'd been hit by a bomb.
And finally, Gail, the friend.
A happy ending. She marries Rupert, the airman. They don't have children, but she has a very successful career and becomes a deputy headmistress, a professional woman. And she stays lifelong friends with the family. She's the constant.
And we can't forget the villains. What happened to Wilfred Pepper?
The corrupt magistrate. Well, he serves his prison time. He's ostracized for a while. But, and this is a cynical but probably very realistic detail, he eventually reintegrates into upper middle class society in the 1960s. Money talks and memories are short.
He gets away with it in the
In
end.
grand scheme of things, yes.
Wow. So what does this all mean? When we look back at this deep dive into 1945, what's the big takeaway?
I think it means that 1945 was a pivot point. It was the moment the immediate daily danger stopped, but the lifelong consequences truly began.
It's not an end, it's a beginning of something else.
Exactly. You look at William, he survived the camps, but he couldn't survive the peace. You look at Isabella. She survived a terrible mother and a slum childhood to build a good life. It's about the varying degrees of survival.
And Maude and Richard just. They survived to hold it all together. They were the center of gravity.
They were. It's about the resilience of the ordinary family. They aren't generals or politicians. They are shopkeepers on Newgate Street. But their story tells us more about the reality of 1945, I think, than any textbook ever could.
And that brings us to the end of this chapter. But as we mentioned at the start, this is book 7 of 8.
That's right. The story isn't quite over. We have one final deep dive coming up, covering the post-war years leading up to Maude and Richard's deaths.
The final chapter. What happens when the new world of the 50s and 60s really settles in? We'll find out next time. For now, thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay curious.